Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another video. It is the game review. Burnley 0, Everton 2. Sean Dyche's Toffees make it 4 wins on the bounce, 4 clean sheets on the bounce as well, 4 away wins on the spin as well after another really important performance at the weekend. As we said on Friday, always felt like this was a little bit of a different challenge to the two previous, obviously two fantastic home wins against Newcastle and Chelsea previously, and this one felt like on paper it should be an easier task because this Burnley team are struggling at the moment. They are in poor form. They haven't had a great start to the season. However, we all know that football isn't played on paper, and these types of games are extremely difficult and I suppose provide a bit of a different challenge. Burnley obviously are down there at the moment, struggling. But as I said, the last performance they had at Turf Moor was a huge 5-0 win against Sheffield United. Everton, that we can sit here and argue all day about the position Everton are in. We all know we shouldn't be where we are in the league table. We all know we should be much higher. But we are where we are, and ultimately I think Burnley would have looked at this fixture as an opportunity not only to get another home win under their belt, but also to climb further and further up the table and get closer to Everton and try and pull Everton down into that relegation battle. But it wasn't to be because Sean Dyche's Toffees literally do not know the meaning of losing at the moment. Another absolutely incredible performance. I was unbelievably satisfied with this game of football, and as I said, the wins against Newcastle and Chelsea were absolutely fantastic. We worked hard, we battled, we dug deep, we scored a couple of goals. It was buzzing, it was booming. This one was a little bit different. It was much more of a professional performance. The manager had to make a number of changes going into the game because of injuries, because of suspensions, and there was always that question as to how Everton would perform with certain players out of the team. We were missing Vitaly Michalenko and Jared Branthwaite, both of whom have been absolutely unbelievable of late. The last couple of months, they've been two of our best performers, if not our best performers. So to have them missing and to bring in the likes of Michael Keane and Ben Godfrey, who not only have not played an awful lot of football recently, but also a sort of, I don't want to say are known for, but they've certainly had times in the past where they've come into an Everton side and they've made mistakes, or ultimately they've given goals away, and we've ended up losing games of football based upon the mistakes that those two players have made. And it was always going to be a big ask to expect them to step into the roles of two players that have been absolutely unbelievable of late and be able to perform at that level. But the pair of them did it absolutely brilliantly, and I think it's only fair that we sit here and we give them huge amounts of credit, because if we were to have turned up at Turf Moor on Saturday evening and Michael Keane would have made 2 or 3 howlers and Everton would have lost the game, we'd all be sitting here analysing and talking for 30, 40 minutes about how poor Michael Keane is and about how, had we have had Jared Branthwaite in the team, we might have won the game. So it's only fair that we sit here and we give him credit where it's deserved. Michael Keane was absolutely unbelievable on Saturday evening. He was fantastic, not only his goal and his involvement further up the pitch, but defensively he was solid as well. He didn't make any mistakes. I know Burnley didn't provide much of a threat and didn't pose us much issue, but he still did what he needed to do. He still defended when he needed to. He still climbed above everybody and headed every ball out and defended every cross that came in when he needed to as well. Ben Godfrey, again, somebody else that is criticised when he performs badly, and therefore should be credited when he performs well. And the sliding challenge that he makes just on half time, as I've spoken about in the instant match reaction, is one that for me is a match winning challenge. If he doesn't make that challenge, then Burnley inevitably score, because it was the ball was going into the back of the net had he have not made that challenge. And then obviously we go in at half time 2-1 up. The momentum completely changes. The atmosphere at Turf Moor completely flips on its head, and all of a sudden Burnley start to fancy themselves, and they've got an entire 45 minutes to get back into the game, which would have been very possible. But that challenge in itself kept it at 2-0, probably deflated the atmosphere a little bit at Turf Moor as well, because they probably felt that was their biggest opportunity and they hadn't taken it. And, it made the second half much, much easier. And I thought it was one of the best second half performances I've seen from Everton Football Club in a long, long time, but for a very different reason to what you would expect. Typically, you would expect, a really, really good second half performance to consist of a couple of goals, to consist of, domination in terms of possession and in terms of quality on the ball, a little bit like that second half against Newcastle, a little bit like that second half against Chelsea. Everton stepped it up a notch, were able to go and get the goals, and ultimately were able to put the game away. But this was a very different second half, but it doesn't mean it was any less important, and it doesn't mean it was any less impressive. And that's because we saw the game out, and we saw the game out really well. We didn't need to go and get another goal. We were already 2-0 up. We were already comfortable. But the big sort of goal, if you like, for the second half, rather than to extend our lead. I'm sure extending our lead would have been in the plan, because you always want to extend your lead if you've got the opportunity to do so. But the main focus, I think, for that second half was not letting them back into the game. They come so close to being back into the game towards the end of the first half. If it wasn't for a world-class challenge, they would have been. That the aim, personally, for me, was to keep them out in the second half, soak up that pressure for the first 15, 20 minutes of it. And the longer it goes without them getting back into it, the more and more, they start to lose faith, and they start to drop in confidence, and they start to sort of look to the next game because they don't believe they'll get anything from that one. And that was exactly what we saw happen. We saw them pile a little bit of pressure on for the opening 10, 15 minutes, get at us, try and create, chances. But then after 20 minutes had gone by and they hadn't been successful and they weren't getting anything out of it, it was a pretty dull final 15, 20 minutes of the second half, because Burnley weren't particularly good enough to get back into the game, and Everton were comfortable in it. So we're not needing to push or press or get in their faces. And it just feels unbelievable, doesn't it? This feeling of being able to watch Everton 2-0 up away from home, after winning 3 games on the bounce, after keeping 3 clean sheets on the spin, to see us 2-0 up away from home with half an hour to go, and just being calm and cool and not panicking and not worrying and not having to think, oh my God, we've got 20 minutes to get back into this game here. Just relaxed. That's a word that I've not used many times over the years watching my football club. I'll be perfectly honest. If you want to and you went through the entirety of every video I've ever done on this channel, firstly, you'd be there for a long, long time, because we've done 1,500 videos. But I'm not sure how many times you would hear the word relaxed being used in conversation about Everton Football Club, because very, very, very rarely over the course of the last 5 years of doing this channel have I felt relaxed watching Everton, whereas that final 20 minutes on Saturday, I felt as relaxed as I've ever felt, because not only were we 2-0 up and comfortable, but also it just feels at the moment that Everton and winning games of football is synonymous. It just feels like, I know we joked at the start of this even about not knowing the meaning of losing, and the irony of that line in Spirit of the Blues, but it really does feel at the moment like you expect Everton to go out and win games of football. There was never an expectation for Everton to go out and win games of football previously. Can you imagine if I'd have said to you at some point in the last 2 seasons that Everton should expect to win a certain game? That wasn't the case, because ultimately we were losing games that you would typically would expect us to win. We were dropping points in games that we were the better team in, and we've been in 2 absolutely horrific relegation battles over the last 2 years that have caused us as a fan base an incredible amount of anxiety, an incredible amount of stress, an incredible amount of worry. And the idea and the thought that Everton were expected to win a game of football was just non-existent over the course of the last 2 years, because of how few games of football we've won. Whereas now, it feels like we can look ahead to games and we can think, do you know what, I fancy us winning that. I fancy us winning that game today. I mean, if you look at the Premier League table at the moment, obviously position-wise, it's pointless even discussing it, because it's a false position. Everton sits 16th in the league table now. It's 16 points, which is 7 points above Luton, who sit in 18th position. Obviously, we've climbed above Nottingham Forest again, 1 point behind Crystal Palace and 3 points behind Bournemouth. Realistically, we all know Everton should be sat on 26 points now, which would be the exact same as Brighton, who are a side that are praised and given all of the plaudits for being one of the best footballing teams in this country. Everton should be sat 2 points behind Manchester United, who are in 7th position, which is a European position. Everton currently, going into the week of Christmas, should be sat 2 points behind the European positions. That sentence in itself, if you would have said to me in April, Cam, by December, by Christmas, you will be saying Everton should be sat 2 points behind a European position, I'd have said, I don't know where you're getting that from. I don't know how you're figuring that out, but we must be signing Kylian Mbappe and Erling Haaland in the summer for that to be the case. But that wasn't the summer transfer window. That obviously we had at the football club. The work that the manager has done, the work that these players have done to get themselves to this position, not 16th in the table because we know they shouldn't be there, but to get themselves to, 9th in the Premier League table, which is where they should be, a couple of points behind those European places, it's absolutely unbelievable. And I've credited these players a huge amount recently, and I've credited this manager a huge amount recently, and I will not stop doing that. I will not stop crediting the manager. I will not stop crediting the players because they deserve it. They deserve it. This is the same team, by the way, with, obviously barring a couple of signings that we made in the summer, a lot of whom, by the way, haven't even had a huge impact on the season so far. I'm not discrediting them or saying that they're not good enough signings, but you look at the players we signed in the summer. We signed Ashley Young, Danjuma, Chimiti, Harrison and Beto. Now, obviously, Ashley Young has come in and played a lot of football, fair enough, as has Jack Harrison, okay. Danjuma, not getting a lot of opportunity at the moment, obviously struggling to get an appearance off the bench. Chimiti, similarly, again, not saying that these players aren't good enough or that we shouldn't assign them. Their opportunity will come. It's a long season. I'm sure we'll see a lot more of Danjuma and Chimiti in Everton shirts. Beto, similarly, again, long season. I'm sure we'll see a lot more of him, but it's not like we've signed one distinct player there that you can say has completely flipped and changed the entirety of this football club this season, and they are the sole reason why we are where we are. Jack Addison's come in and done well. He's worked hard. He's put himself about. He's had an impact, similarly to, Beto when he's come on. But my point is the majority of this squad are the same players that relied on a wonderful strike of a football to keep them in the Premier League on the final day of the season in May. This is the same back line near enough, the same midfield near enough, and the same forward line near enough that had to go down to the final game of the season in order to survive in this league. We all sat there at Goodison Park on whatever date it was. Was it the 15th of May, something like that? At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, not knowing whether or not we were going to go to bed that night with Everton being relegated or staying up. And fast forward, to December in the same year, Everton are in a position where we not only should be a couple of points away from the European places, but we're also going into games of football now expecting Everton to win. But not only are we going into games of football expecting Everton to win, but we're coming out of those games of football with Everton winning and winning comfortably. I think if you'd have said to the majority of us, me included, going into Saturday's game against Burnley, are you confident? Do you think Everton should win this game? As much as I think this presented itself as a bit of a different challenge to some of the games that we've had previously over the course of the last couple of weeks, and as much as I thought this one would be more difficult than what it was, I still expected Everton to come away with 3 points because Burnley are not a great footballing side. They're not. And I don't mean this to be disrespectful. I don't mean this to be patronising towards Burnley, but this whole idea that Burnley were going to be an unbelievable side in the Premier League this season because they done well in the Championship was nonsense. And anybody that sat there in the summer and said things like Burnley will finish top 10, Company will get them into the top half of the table, it's nonsense, and I don't understand how people formulated that opinion. How many times have we seen teams wipe the floor with the Championship, come up winning nearly every game in the Championship, and then struggle in the Premier League and ultimately go back down because they can't keep up with the physicality or the pace or the speed of the league, whatever it might be. We've seen numerous teams over the years who have been in the Championship, won it relatively comfortably, come up to the Premier League and really, really struggle to maintain that level. So that was always my opinion of Burnley. I always felt like Burnley would struggle this season. However, you can't take it away from the fact that this Everton team also struggled last season in the Premier League. If you would say I think if you would pick a random footballing fan that might not necessarily be a Premier League football fan or might not necessarily know much about the Premier League or know about who's going down or who isn't going down, and you say to them, right, watch every Everton performance this season, and then after they'd watched every Everton performance, you said, do you think that team barely survived last season and struggled to stay in this division? I think they'd say, well, no, because they're winning games comfortably. They're good at home. They're strong at home. They can go away with a plan and with a, with a system, and they can go and implement it perfectly and win those games as well. So no, but let me reiterate again, this side was 45 minutes away from being in the Championship in May. We're now in December. We should be 90 minutes away from being in a European position, which just shows and just tells you how good of a job Sean Dyche is doing, how important Sean Dyche has been to this football club. And I said it in the instant match reaction, and I will say it again. I hold my hands up. I was wrong about Sean Dyche. I was wrong about Sean Dyche. I sat here numerous times in August and September time, even October, and said that I believe this manager should be sacked because I don't think he's good enough. I don't think he has given Everton what we need, and I think we'll struggle with him this season. Wow, how wrong was I? How wrong was I? And I know there's numerous people in the comments who are going to tell me how wrong I was. I know I've had all of the comments already, don't you worry, of people telling me that, I should have given patience and this, that, and the other. Well, I'll hold my hands up and admit I was wrong about this manager. I was wrong about this manager, and he's proven me wrong week in, week out. And I've got no problem admitting that, by the way. I've got no problem admitting that because I wanted to be wrong about Sean Dyche. I want Sean Dyche to stay at Everton Football Club for 30, 40 years because that would mean that he's doing that good of a job, that he's staying in his job, which ultimately would mean that Everton are doing really, really well. And I always said that. I said that earlier on in the season when when we spoke about him leaving the football club. I said at that time I'd love Sean Dyche to stay at this football club for a long, long time, but I just don't see it working out for him. I was wrong. I hold my hands up. I was wrong. He's done an unbelievable job over the last couple of months, and not only has he done an unbelievable job post the points deduction, but I think it's really, really important to highlight how impressive Everton were before the points deduction, because I've seen a lot of people talking about the points deduction and talking about how it rallied Everton and, it it was the thing that has given Everton the energy and the desire to go and win games of football, and it's what's the word people are using? It's galvanised the football club. That's not quite true. Yes, Everton have been near perfect since the points deduction, and maybe the points deduction has had a positive impact on the team in terms of galvanising everybody together, in terms of that us versus everyone mentality. But let's just look at Everton's form prior to the points deduction. Our first win of the season was a 3-1 win against Brentford away from home, which come completely out of nowhere. Before that, we didn't look like we could win a game of football. We then went to Brentford, one of the best home teams in the league, and we beat them 3-1. We then went to Villa in the Cup and we beat them 2-1. How many teams have gone to Villa Park this season and won? Whether it be in the Premier League, whether it be in the Cup competitions, how many teams have gone to Villa Park since Unai Emery has been in charge and won there? Not many. Okay, we then had that, blip against Luton. We lost 2-1. Fine. We had the conversation then. It is what it is. We then bounced back, 3-0 win against Bournemouth. Brilliant win, first home win of the season. Really good performance. We then had the derby, 2-0 defeat, but we all know what happened in that situation. We were completely robbed. Liverpool should have had 10 men at 0-0. Who knows how it would have ended in that situation. We then go to West Ham after the derby defeat, where we were hard done by, and an awful refereeing decision once again changed the game. We didn't drop our heads. We didn't let ourselves, confidence drop. We didn't let the momentum drop. We didn't let the good feeling around the football club drop. We turned up at West Ham. We won 1-0 again. Brilliant win. Another away win from home. Excellent win. We then beat Burnley in the Cup at Goodison 3-0 comfortably. We then drew with Brighton 1-1 in a game that we should have won. Brighton equalised with 5 minutes to go. Everton with a much better team in that game. We could have been 2-3, 4-0 up at half time. We didn't take our chances. We only got a point, but we should have won that game. We then beat Crystal Palace away from home. Then we had the points deduction. So prior to the points deduction from September to mid-November, Everton beat Brentford, we beat Villa in the Cup, we beat Bournemouth, we beat West Ham, we beat Burnley, and we beat Palace, and we should have beaten Brighton. So 6 wins and a draw that we should have won prior to the points deduction. We then obviously lost to Manchester United, and then we won 4 on the bounce. Forest, Newcastle, Chelsea, and of course Burnley. 4 clean sheets on the spin as well. 4 away wins on the spin, because obviously that game against Crystal Palace was away from home. So the job that the manager is doing at this moment, and the job that these players are doing at the moment, is absolutely, it's unbelievable, and it's almost unfathomable to think about how well this team is doing when you consider how much we struggled last season. It's unfathomable to think. It would have been unfathomable for me to believe in May that this team was capable of these performances and these results and this momentum, but they are. You only have to look at the Premier League table. Top of the league is Arsenal with 12 wins. Now, before anybody says, I'm not comparing Everton to Arsenal, I'm not saying Everton is as good as Arsenal, I'm not saying Everton should be top of the league. Arsenal have got 12 wins. Right. Everton have got 8 wins this season. Now, 8 to 12, 4 different. I can think now of 4 games of football that Everton should have won this season that we didn't. We should have beaten Wolves at Goodison. We should have beaten Fulham at Goodison. We should have beaten Luton at Goodison, and we should have beaten Brighton at Goodison. Now, okay, we lost 3 of those games, and I know people will say, well, if but and maybe, if Arsenal had won the 3 they drew, they'd have had 50 minutes. I get that, but what I'm saying is, it's not like Everton have won 8 this season. We've lost 7, and in every one of those 7 games, we've been absolutely battered. The opposition team has wiped the floor with us. It's been a comfortable win for them, and we've had no complaints. We had a plethora of opportunities against Fulham and lost 1-0 with a late goal in a game that we should have been, we should have been 2-3-0 up comfortably before they even got their opening goal. We lost 1-0 to Wolves in exactly the same circumstance. Another game that we should have been absolutely home and dry before they got their goal. We drew 1-1 with Brighton, as we've just mentioned. Another game that we should have won. We conceded with 5 minutes to go, 10 minutes to go, and we had opportunities to win the game. And we lost to Luton. And that goes without saying, we should have won that game. So had we have won those 4 games that A, we should have won based on the performance on the day, but B, we should have won anyway because they were home winnable fixtures, we'd be sat currently top of the league. Without the points deduction, obviously. We'd be sat joint top of the league with Arsenal. So that just shows you how well this team has done this season. And yes, we currently sit 16th in the Premier League, but we shouldn't be sitting 16th in the Premier League. If you look at that Premier League table, it's actually laughable to see all of those teams down there. Let's go from Brighton in 9th, 7 wins. Chelsea in 10th, 6 wins. Fulham in 11th, 6 wins. Brentford in 12th, 5 wins. Wolves 13th, 5 wins. Bournemouth 14th, 5 wins. Palace 15th, 4 wins. Everton 16th, 8 wins. Double what the side in front of us have got. Nottingham Forest 17th, 2 points behind us. 3 wins, 5 less wins. Luton 18th, 2 wins, Burnley 2 wins, and Sheffield United 2 wins. It's incredible, and Saturday was another example of how well this team is doing at the moment and how adaptable this team actually is, because it's one thing having a flat-out starting 11 that plays every week, that performs every week, and that wins every week, with your star players working hard and battling and showing their quality week in, week out. It's one thing having that and performing and winning. It's another thing having to change that preferred starting 11, if you like. Bring in players that not only haven't had a lot of game time recently, but also are susceptible to making, game-changing mistakes. Completely change the formation in the system, and yet still go away and comfortably win a game of football. I'm smiling because I'm almost in disbelief that this is our football club that we're talking about. I'm almost in disbelief that I can sit here and talk about an Everton win away from home, and as I said on the instant match reaction, not be absolutely bouncing off the walls, not be absolutely buzzing, because it's almost an expectation now. 4 wins on the spin. We're joint top of the form table with Arsenal, or certainly we're joint with Arsenal's form. They've won 4 of the last 5 and lost 1. I know Liverpool have drew 2 and won 3, and Villa actually have won 4 and drew 1. So Villa are probably top of the form table, similar with Bournemouth. Bournemouth won 4, drew 1, but Everton are right up there at the moment, and that just shows you how impressive Sean Dyche's work is at the moment, and how good of a job he is doing, and how well these players are doing to be able to go out there, do exactly what the manager wants them to do, and come away with 3 points every week at the moment in the face of adversity, because that is what they're doing. I've seen so many Everton teams over the years. Carlo Ancelotti addressed this when he was at the football club. We've witnessed it for a long, long time, where the team would be so fragile. It would be so delicate that any form of adversity, any form of negative situation, they would completely crumble. Whether it be a refereeing decision in a game, whether it be a mistake that a player has made, whether it be an off-the-field thing. I've witnessed so many Everton teams in the past, in my lifetime, where the smallest amount of adversity and they wouldn't be able to deal with it, and it would affect their game, and it would affect their performance, and Everton would ultimately go and go on a bad run of results because of one specific thing: refereeing decision, injury, mistake on the field, whatever it might be. This team doesn't do that. As soon as there's a mistake, as soon as there's a bit of adversity, as soon as there's a difficult situation that presents itself, this team don't shy away from it. And that is the biggest credit I can give to Sean Dyche, because I've seen Carlo Ancelotti manage Everton Football Club. Now, I'm not comparing Carlo Ancelotti to Sean Dyche, but I've watched Carlo Ancelotti manage this football club, and I've watched Carlo Ancelotti come out in his very own words and say, this team has got 2 faces, referring to the fact that in the face of adversity, they don't know how to handle it. He was also referring to the fact that our home form was absolutely dreadful, but our away form was brilliant. But that was part of the adversity. They couldn't get over that block of being at Goodison Park during COVID. They couldn't get over it. Carlo Ancelotti, one of the greatest managers of all time, struggled to implement a fierce, fearless sort of almost ricochet mentality to this team, where anything negative that was hit at them just ricocheted off them and they got on with it. He struggled to implement that. He come out in interviews and spoke about how difficult it was to deal with a team that as soon as something hits them that isn't positive, they struggle with it, and they go on the downward spiral, and they ultimately, then are in a path of 3 or 4 really, really bad results. Other managers over the years couldn't do it. Sean Dyche has come in, and not only people might say, "Oh yeah, but Dyche's, this, that, and the other," and it's not all Dyche's. It's down to the players, etc., etc., etc. This was a squad. Let me remind you, this was a squad. This was a team that, and by the way, this is coming from me, who 3-4 months ago wanted Sean Dyche to be sacked, and I almost feel dirty saying those words. I feel embarrassed. I feel like I should be saying them. I feel like I should be coming on, sitting here and apologising. I feel embarrassed. I feel like I've sort of discredited myself, because I pride myself on being a massive Evertonian and feeling like I want what's best for this football club, and as we all do, we all feel like we know what's best for this football club because we're fans, and we've always been fans, and we always will be. And I feel embarrassed that I got that so wrong, because like I said, we've witnessed one of the greatest managers of all time manage this football club, and he could not seem to resolve that problem. he could not seem to resolve the mental side of this sport. He couldn't seem to resolve how to not only avoid negative situations, because you'll never avoid adversity in life. And I think that is a lesson. I think there's a lesson to be learned in this. And without trying to go too deep and without trying to get too sloppy the week before Christmas, I hope you're all having a fantastic festive period, by the way. For those who celebrate, for those who don't, I hope you're all absolutely buzzing anyway. But without trying to go too deep, there's a lesson to be learned here. And that is that you will never, ever in life, in football, in your job, in life itself, you will never be able to go the entirety of life without facing adversity and without facing some form of struggle or some form of upset or some form of negativity. Now, that can come in various different forms in life. I'm not going to sit here and talk about all the different forms of adversity and negativity, but it will come in various different forms. In football, it comes in the form of a bad decision or a mistake by a player or an off the field thing, a points deduction, for example. You will never, ever, ever, ever be able to avoid those sorts of things. What is important and what is telling is how you deal with it. Do you let it consume you and let it take over your life and let it ruin you and let it decide how you feel and how you act and how you respond, like it has done with Everton previously, where we've lost games because we've been down or we've lost our confidence or we've been 2-0 up at Goodison Park with 5 minutes to go, we've conceded the goal and we've completely, lost control of the game and then went and conceded another one and drew a game that we were drew a game that we were 2 minutes away from winning? Or do you take it on the chin and sort of go, well, yeah, whatever, it is what it is, we'll deal with it, we'll move on, and we'll continue plodding in that direction? Because that is the best way to get over adversity. That is the best way to get over any struggle or any problem or any negativity, is to... And by the way, I'm not claiming to be a therapist here. I'm not saying if you're sad and you're down, then just get on with it and you'll be all right. I'm not... Obviously, there's much, much more that goes into it, and there's much, much more difficulty that people go through. But what I'm saying is, generally, if you face those things head on and you say, do you know what, I'm going to deal with this and I'm going to act upon this and I'm going to deal with it to get the best outcome possible, and I'm going to take the positive out of a really negative, dark situation, then more often than not, you will benefit from that. And that is exactly what Sean Dyche has done. And Sean Dyche strikes me as the type of manager that is exactly that. Sean Dyche strikes me as the type of person that you would go to if you were struggling and if you needed advice. If something had happened in your life and you didn't know how to deal with it and you didn't know how to move on from it and it was consuming you, Sean Dyche is the type of person that I'd go to, I think, and say, listen, Sean, this is the situation, this is what's happened, what advice have you got for me to deal with this? Because he seems like somebody that would always look on the sort of logical side and not necessarily the emotional side of things. And I think that's what Sean Dyche has done really, really well with Everton at the moment, is especially post the points deduction, he has removed the emotion from it and he has implemented the logic to these players. So whilst that is a very emotional situation for us as fans, because we feel like we've been robbed by a corrupt organisation. We all know the protests. We all have heard me talk about it, heard other fan channels talk about it. It's a very emotional time for us as fans. But that emotion can sometimes turn into a negative, because sometimes it can consume you. And sometimes you can, you can act based upon it. They say in the fighting game, don't they, in boxing or in UFC, you can't be too emotional going into a fight, because that emotion will take over and you will start to make mistakes because you will act based upon the emotion rather than based upon the logic. And I think what Sean Dyche has done really, really well at the moment is removing the emotion from the situation. He had a press conference after the win at Chelsea, and he was asked about the points deduction, and he said, well, we started the season quite well. We weren't getting the results. We then started to get the results. We were then hit with a points deduction and basically told, right, you've got to go back to the start and do it again. So we said, right, all right, then we will. And that sentence in itself. If you don't know the clip I'm talking about, we put it on our Twitter. I'm sure I'll find it and quote tweet it at some point today. But that in itself, that one clip, is Sean Dyche literally removing the emotion from the situation and saying, "We'll park that over there, because as good as the emotion can be to rally people up and to get everybody fighting and to get everybody on the same page, it also can provide a distraction, and it also can be a negative. So let's look at the logical side of it. The logical side of it is we're still playing well. We still know how to win games. We're still much better than a lot of teams in the league. So let's implement that every week and go and win every week." And in doing that, really, really clever, in doing that, it's almost like, I'm going really, really deep here, but please bear with me. Imagine you've got the situation here. So you've got the situation in a ball here. Sean Dyche has gone, right, let's separate it. You've got the logic, you've got the emotion. The logic is we still need to win games of football. You know, it's nothing has changed in terms of the goal. The goal is we still go out every week to win, no matter who we're playing, and we go out with a system and a plan to win. The emotion is we should be higher than we are. We've been robbed. The Premier League's corrupt, etc., etc. What he's done is he's parked the emotion over here, and he's just acted on the logic with the players, and the players have gone out and they've won against Forest, and they've won against Newcastle, and they've won against Chelsea. And what that is allowing, it's allowing the emotion to seep in, but only the positives of the emotion, because the negatives of the emotion can't seep in because the logic stops them from doing it. But the positives of the emotion then seep in the face of the fans, you know, screaming and shouting and getting behind the team and singing songs at the away games. It seeps in the players feeling happy. Oh my God, you know, we're doing really well at the moment. Everything's good. So the emotion starts to be dissected, and the positives from it start to seep in, and the negatives stay where they are. And that, as deep as that is, and as much as you might be sitting here now thinking, Cam, what the fuck have you taken this morning? It's a Monday morning at 11 o'clock and you're talking all of this. Understand it, because there's a psychological situation that Sean Dyche has implemented here to ensure that Everton don't sort of go off the track and don't be, and aren't distracted by the points deduction. And it just, as I said, for me, it just further accentuates the credit that this man deserves for what he's doing at the moment, because, like I said, this is an Everton that I can't remember having for a long, long, long time. I love my football club, and I'll always, always, always be there to watch them week in, week out, regardless of where we are in the league, regardless of what league we're in, regardless of how well we're doing. I'll always be there to support my football club. But this feels unbelievable. This feels different. It feels very much like it did under David Moyes, where we'd win games of football and you'd be buzzing and you'd be happy and you'd be bouncing and you'd wake up with a smile on your face, but you wouldn't be surprised. You wouldn't be shocked. You wouldn't be overwhelmed because you didn't expect it. Because we now do expect it. You know, I go the match with me dad, and I've done for years and years and years. All my life, I've gone the match with me dad, and I've gone the match with the group of lads and ladies that he goes the match with. And naturally, they've all been going the match for 30, 40 years, so naturally they're all a little bit older than me. They're all in their 50s, early 60s, and then there's me, and there's a couple of other young lads who obviously are the children of, I'm my dad's child, obviously, and then you've got a couple of other lads who are the children of one of my dad's mates. That goes, you get the gist. And a couple of my dad's mates always say to me, Cam, I remember going to Goodison Park in the 80s or, the mid-80s, you'd be disappointed if you didn't win at least 3-0. You'd come away from a game against a mid-table Premier League team, or obviously it wasn't Premier League, a mid-table top division team, and if you'd only won 1-0, you'd be a little bit disheartened. You'd be a little bit underwhelmed at the fact that you'd only won 1-0. And I always used to sit there, and this was obviously, we had these conversations over the last 2 years, and I always used to sit there and think, fucking hell, As much as that sounds greedy, and it is greedy, I'd have given everything, last season and the season before to see Everton win a home game, regardless of what score it was, regardless of who we were playing. I'd have given everything to see Everton beat the shittest team in the whole of the English Football League, 1-0 at Goodison, because we just didn't get that very often. We just didn't get wins. We didn't get, good weekends very often, certainly not over the last couple of years. And as I said, they always say, "Can I remember where you'd come away from Goodison, and if you hadn't won 3 or 4-0, you'd be a little bit disappointed." Now we're not at that level yet, of course, because I'm still absolutely buzzing every time we win. But I can understand it, because now I'm watching Everton win an away game, and I'm sort of calm and comfortable and collected. Whereas a year ago, if I was watching Everton win an away game, I'd be stressing my head off. I remember sitting there when we beat Brighton away from home last season, and we were 3-0 up, and I still was convinced that we weren't going to win that game of football. Still. I didn't calm down until we went 4-0 up. And then when it went 4-1 almost instantly, I started panicking again. Because even with 10 minutes to go, 4-1 up, I was still convinced Everton weren't going to win that game of football. Now, fast forward, what? Less than a year later, is it? Since that Brighton result. And all of a sudden, I am sitting back, watching Everton 2-0 up in 25 minutes at Burnley, and I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, this is comfortable, we'll win this. We won't concede 2 in this game. Less than a year later, a large part of this squad is the same squad that played on that day, that was in the match day squad on that day. And yet, less than a year later, I'm sitting here saying, yeah, we're 2-0 up, we'll win. And yes, Brighton are a better team than Burnley, but that's not the point. My point is that I went from, Everton being 4-1 up with 15 minutes to go and still not being confident that we were going to win the game, to being 2-0 up with an hour to go and having me feet up, thinking another win, another great win, because I was that confident we'd win the game. And as I said, that again is all directly linked to the manager and how well the manager's done at the moment and how well these players are doing. Anyway, we're 42 minutes into this video and we haven't even spoken about the game. Let's get into it. Obviously, the team news comes out. We knew we would be without Vitaly Mikalenko. We knew that we would be without Jared Brandtwaite. We knew we would be without Garner Gay. We knew we would be without Seamus Coleman and Ashley Young. But we were hit with the news that we were also going to be without Vitaly Mikalenko, who has been one of our best performers over the course of, the season, really. Every game he's played for Everton this season, I think he's been absolutely fantastic in. That was a shock. The team news was announced. We spoke on Friday about who would go in to replace who would go in to replace Brandtwaite. Would it be Keane? Would it be Godfrey? Well, it was both of them. Obviously, in the absence of Vitaly Mikalenko, we had a back line of a 5, or a 3, but a 5. Dwight McNeil left wing back. We obviously had Michael Keane, James Tarkowski, and Ben Godfrey through the centre, with Nathan Patterson at right wing back. Now, what is really important to remember is we spoke a little bit earlier about how Everton not only have gone and won another game of football relatively comfortably, but we've done it with a number of our first team squad out and having to change the whole system. That is a really important point, because not only have Everton won 4 on the spin, but arguably the most difficult game. Now, I know people will say, well, Newcastle's more difficult because they're a better team, or Chelsea's more difficult because they're a better team. I think this game was more difficult because of the situation. Burnley, just coming off the back of a big win at home the last time they were at home. I know they've lost a couple of games since, but just coming off of a big win at home, in and around a similar position in the Premier League table. Had they have won, they'd have jumped up to, 11 points, which is a significant difference. That would have only been 2 points behind Everton. It would have given them a huge opportunity and a huge rise in confidence. And yet, not only have we won it, but we've managed to win that game with a completely different backline and a completely different system. I can't credit Ben Godfrey, Michael Keane, and Nathan Patterson enough, because the three of them, and I think we overlooked Nathan a little bit in the instant match reaction and in the player ratings because he's had a lot more game time this season than what Ben Godfrey and Michael Keane have had, and that is the truth. And yes, he still hasn't played an awful lot, but he's had more game time than them. But I think it's important to understand that it was also a huge opportunity for Nathan, because whilst he's had a lot of game time recently, he's not started. He's come off the bench with 15, 20 minutes to go when Everton have been comfortable in games and he's not really needed to do much. But he's not started these games, so it's not like you can say, oh yeah, but he plays every week. The attention obviously was on Ben Godfrey. The attention was obviously on Michael Keane, but I thought Nathan was really solid on Saturday. Yes, there was a couple of moments where he left a little bit too much space in behind. Yes, there was a couple of moments where he got caught a little bit in possession, or he got caught a little bit, in terms of his positioning. But for the most part, he was absolutely sound. He was solid as anything. He was battling. He was working hard. He was defending well. He was getting up the other side of the pitch. He was absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. Really solid performance, and I've got no problem with Nathan Patterson being in the starting 11 tomorrow night as well against Fulham. By the way, the game preview to that will be up a little bit later today. No problem with it whatsoever. Thought he was really solid, but obviously the attention is on Michael Keane and Ben Godfrey, who the pair of them had an impact on the game. Now, usually when we sit here and we talk about Ben Godfrey and Ben Godfrey and Michael Keane having an impact on a game of football, often we're talking about them having a negative impact on a game of football because it's facts. These two players, specifically Michael Keane, have had a bit of a rough few years at Everton, where some of their performances they've made big mistakes in, and Everton have ultimately gone on and lost the game. I'm not blaming them for the whole situation because it's not just their fault, but they have been seen as unreliable for a couple of years, and that's fair to say. I think the pair of them did have an impact on this game on Saturday, but it was a positive impact. Michael Keane scoring a goal, could have had a hat-trick, definitely should have had two. But not only that, defensively, absolutely unbelievable. But also, Ben Godfrey, who makes a sliding challenge that, as I said on Saturday, for me, wins Everton the game as comfortably as we did. I'm not saying, had he have not made that tackle, Everton wouldn't have won the game. Because, I think we probably still would have gone on and won the game because ultimately Burnley offered very little in that second half. But it certainly wouldn't have been as easier as it was, because if he hadn't have made that challenge, Burnley would have got a goal back, and it would have been 2-1. And then the second half would have been much more difficult. The pressure would have piled on. Their confidence would have grown massively. It would have been much more difficult. So both of those players, who a lot of us had a bit of pessimism about them playing and about them starting and about how positive of an impact they're going to have on the team, they both had a direct positive impact on Everton winning the game of football. And that is massive for me. Absolutely massive. We started the game not brilliantly, I felt. Like I said, I thought we were a little bit slow going into it, but it's to be expected because it was a whole different system. It was completely different to what the players are used to. These players are used to Everton playing in a flat back line, similar, same team every week, same system, same style, and going out and performing. It was different. McNeil had a different role. Patterson had a different role, and obviously was starting for the first time in a long time. We obviously had three at the back, so Tarkowski had a completely different role to what he's used to having, as did the midfield. So I think there was a bit of teething problem in the opening 15 minutes of the game, but nothing too serious. It was just the case of we didn't seem as comfortable as what we usually do. We didn't seem as in control as what we usually do. But that wasn't to the advantage of Burnley. Burnley weren't a much better team in the opening 15 minutes. Burnley had nothing in the entire game, but they certainly had nothing in that opening 15, 20 minutes. It was just the case of Everton weren't as good or weren't as poignant, if you like, as we had been in previous performances and in previous games, because, as I said, different lineup, and that takes some getting used to. But it didn't take long for us to settle into the game, did it? It didn't take long for us to settle into the game. We after 10 or 15 minutes, 10 minutes or so, shall we say, we started to get a foothold in it. We started to get forward. We started to create opportunities. We started to get at Burnley. Burnley couldn't deal with it. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to deal with it. Dwight McNeil has a big chance early on, a big chance. Ball comes in from Patterson. Dwight McNeil's got a free header at the back post and puts it wide. And you're sort of sitting there thinking, if that falls to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, or, it becomes a much, much better chance and a much more difficult situation for Burnley. But it doesn't. It falls to Dwight McNeil. But that was the first moment that I think we all sort of went, okay, we're getting at these here, and these are going to really, really struggle to defend balls into the box. And that is another thing that hugely, hugely impressed me. Don't get me wrong, if there's anybody that knows Burnley Football Club and what Burnley Football Club are good and bad at, it's Sean Dyche, of course. I know this is a different iteration of Burnley and a much different side than the one he had, but he obviously knows them very, very well, and he obviously knows they struggle to deal with balls into the box and they struggle to deal with set pieces. He exploited that, and he exploited that brilliantly. We got close with the Dwight McNeil one in terms of the fact that Dwight McNeil was left on his own at the back post and should have done better with the header. And that was what we persisted with then for the rest of the first half. Another good ball comes in. Dom gets up, rises, forces James Safford into making a big save. Should have done better. Should have done better, Dom, with the header. It should have been in the back of the net. But then we get the corner from that. Dwight McNeil puts the ball in, and Amadou Onana comes battling through it, absolutely everybody, to put it in the back of the net. And again, a player that I think has gone a little bit under the radar of late. I know he's had his injury and he's been out for a few weeks, and obviously Garner Gay has stepped in to replace him. Ironically, now he's back fit, he stepped in to replace Garner Gay, who, of course, who has picked up a suspension. But I think he's been a little bit overlooked of late, Amadou Onana, because I think his performances have been absolutely brilliant. I really, really do. I think the majority of this season, he's put in top performances week in, week out. Now, yes, he's not always hugely impactful on the game in terms of goals or assists or goal line clearances, but his presence in the midfield, having somebody as big as Amadou Onana, having somebody as tall, having somebody with the stature of Amadou Onana in the centre of the midfield is hugely, hugely important for this football club. And I think Amadou showed again on Saturday why he is such an asset. That ball comes in and there's, 6 or 7, 8 bodies all in that sort of 6-yard box scrambling for it, and he comes in and he jumps above everybody, as you would expect, because he's much taller than everybody, but he gets his head on it. The goalkeeper's got absolutely no chance. The Burnley defence have got no chance, and it proved that putting balls into the box and throwing balls on the keeper's toes will be a success for Everton in this game. It was a really, really good cross into the box, put into a dangerous area, and Amadou, as I said, jumped really, really well. And I think he deserves a lot of credit, Amadou, because I thought he put in a really, really solid performance on the weekend. Not only his goal, but I thought his overall performance was fantastic. We've got the lead then. Okay, we've had a couple of teething problems in the opening 5 or 10 minutes, but we've got the lead. We're in front. We're ahead. Burnley's, momentum and confidence just took a hit. Now, I would be lying if I was to say there wasn't moments in that first half and the second, but specifically the first half, where I was a little bit concerned, because there was moments in that first half where I was a little bit concerned. There were moments where Burnley got in behind. There were moments where Burnley were in good areas to create opportunities, but they just couldn't create the opportunities because they haven't got the quality to do that. And I think that's ultimately why they will go down this season, is because even when they get in those positions to create chances, they just haven't got the quality to do it. But they did have moments where they broke in behind the back line. They broke in behind Patterson, or they broke in behind Tarkowski. And as I said, that is to be expected when you change the system, when you've got a whole new formation, a whole new system, basically a whole new back four. It's to be expected that you have some teething issues. But thankfully, every time they did get in that area, or they did, pose a bit of a threat, it was defended really, really, really well, whether it be from James Tarkowski or, most notably, I think, from Michael Keane, who wasn't only fantastic going forward and in his impact going forward, but also defensively, he was incredibly solid. on Saturday. Everything that come in, he headed out. Everything that he had to deal with, he did really, really well. We then obviously, not long after, go and get the second goal. Again, another ball into the box, another lumped ball into the box. Tarkowski gets on the end of it, heads it down really, really well. It falls to Michael Keane. And, I said it in the instant match reaction, and I'll say it again here. I'm not joking when I say this, by the way. I'm being 100% serious. I don't know if there's many other Everton players that I would rather the ball fall to on the edge of the box other than Michael Keane. I really, really don't. Yeah, you could say Decore. Yeah, you could maybe say James Garner. But Michael Keane is up there for players that you want the ball to fall to on the edge of the box. You want the ball to present itself with a striking opportunity in a good area. You want Michael Keane on the end of it. Because as much as he has had a tough time, shall we say, as an Everton player, as much as he's had his inconsistencies defensively, as much as he's struggled at times defensively and he's struggled at times with his confidence, he has always provided in front of goal. And more often than not, when Michael Keane gets on the end of a header or of a volley in and around the opposition box, it's on target. We only have to look back to two big goals over the last couple of seasons. The goal against Tottenham at Goodison to make it 1-1 to get us an important point on that day, and the goal against Crystal Palace at Goodison the season before to get us back into that game, which we ultimately went and won and then stayed up from. So I have never, ever, ever had a concern about Michael Keane's ability in front of goal. It's always been about Michael Keane's ability to defend the goal. And again, this was another example of that. It's a really, really well taken volley. It's a good save. Yes, he gets a little bit lucky with the deflection, but he's there. He's the first there to react to it. It's not a case of it just falls to his feet. He's got to react. He's got to be first there. He's got to be on his toes. And he is on his toes. And he does react, and he reacts brilliantly. And like I said, he deserved that goal because, it would have been really, really difficult for him to step in, knowing that Jared has been absolutely unbelievable of late, knowing that Jared is somebody that is, a stalwart now in this team. It would have been difficult for him to step in and have to do that job. And not only did he do the job that he had to do really well, but he obviously got his reward with a really, really big goal. And the moment it goes 2-0, again, for me, unusually, because it is an unusual feeling, I was relaxed. At that point, I was absolutely relaxed. We then obviously see out the rest of the first half. And as I said, that challenge made by Ben Godfrey at the end of the first half is huge because let me tell you what that does. If Ben doesn't make that challenge, then Burnley score. And it's not a case of they might have scored, they might have scored, they do score. The lad is literally waiting behind them to tap it into an empty net. Burnley score. Not even a Burnley player who's struggling at the moment would have missed that. No chance. If Burnley score in that moment, then all of a sudden it goes to 2-1. We go to half time, and Vincent Kompany's team talk is effectively done itself, isn't it? He doesn't have to give a team talk. His team talk is, we've just scored at the best moment there. The crowd are up for it. They're buzzing. They're going to be lively in that opening 10 or 15 minutes of the second half. If you go out there and you put pressure on Everton, they've got a change back line. They've got players in there that are known to struggle when in the face of adversity. Go out there, get the pressure on them, and go and get back in this game. That challenge itself not only completely avoids that conversation and avoids that issue for Everton, but it also makes it worse for Burnley because instead of having the conversation of you've just got a goal before our time there, go out and put pressure on them and the crowd will react, Vincent Kompany has now got to say, well, that was our best opportunity of the afternoon and we haven't taken it, so how do we come back from that? I always felt like there would be a period of 15, 20 minutes at the start of that second half where Everton would be under pressure, where Burnley would react and where those Burnley players would think, do you know what, we can get at these and we can create. And they did. And they had a period of 10, 15 minutes, as I said, where we were defending and we were sat back and we were looking like we were sort of reverting a little bit. But it only lasted 15 minutes, as it always does. Because after 15, 20 minutes, teams start to think, what more can we do here? We've got at them, we've battled them, we've had a go. and we're still not getting any success from it. So then, the longer it went on, the less confident Burnley become, the more Everton started to grow back in the game. And it was almost like we started to take over again. We started to take over control of the ball. We started to take over control of the possession. And yes, it wasn't a very lively second half. We didn't go and get another goal. We didn't create many other opportunities. We had a couple of half chances here and there, but we didn't create many other opportunities. We had the Michael Keane one where he's hit the post twice, which again is baffling because how he hasn't scored the second goal. Not blaming Michael Keane, by the way. Very tight angle, but very, very fortunate from a Burnley point of view for them to get away with that. But we just saw the game out. We just sorted it out as professionally as possible. No messing about, no panicking, no overreacting, just saw the game out. And I was sitting there with my feet up, eating cheese and crackers with the fire on, the Christmas tree up on a Saturday afternoon, watching Everton take the piss. Watching Everton with 20 minutes to go in a game, 2-0 up away from home to make it 4 wins on the spin, 4 clean sheets on the spin, just taking the pee. And we did that. Burnley then never really got back into the game. Everton never really got out of second gear, to be honest, and we saw the game out and we won it comfortably. And as I said, it was a huge win. And yeah, what a performance, what a manager, and what a set of players. And I was so wrong, and I'm happy to be so wrong because I'd have rather, when I sat there and I'd done that into the match reaction and I said, Dyche needs to go, I would have rather have been proven wrong on that day than being proven right. And I have been proven wrong, and I can sit here and I can hold my hands up and I can admit that, and I can honestly tell you how happy I am to have been proven wrong. Yeah, what a performance, what a win. And let's hope we can keep this form going. Let's hope we can keep this momentum. We've got a big game tomorrow against Fulham. Let's hope we can go out there and win that one as well. I know it's in the cup, but it would be a huge confidence boost. It may well be our last quarter final at Goodison Park, so let's go and make the most of it. Anyway, we're going to leave it there. If you have enjoyed it, please hit that like button. It does only take 8 seconds. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you are new as well. Go down below, check out all of the links down there. Check out Fan Hub. Go and check out our TikTok, the Mighty Blues EFC, and go and check out our Twitter, of course, as well. But yeah, huge thank you all for watching. If you have enjoyed it, please do leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe if you are new as well. Up the toffees, get in, and we'll see you after.